Hello, we want to welcome you today to our show, the Sunnyside Community Voice, where this is a show about the issues that are out there. And for the past 2 months, we've been dealing with the subject of mental health. Today, our guest on the show is Judge Roger Bridgewater. He is an attorney, and he works out of the office of District Attorney Pat Lycos. We want to welcome you to our show, Judge Bridgewater, and of course we have Robin, our co-host from Robin's Haven of Hope, and we have Pastor James Nash, which is our CEO. And of course, you know me, I am Shirley King, your host for today. We're going to pass the baton over to Judge Bridgewater, because we want to thank you for being here with us today and let you tell us a little bit something about yourself. We're happy to have you here with us. We know that mental health is something that you are dealing with also. So can you tell our audience something about you, Judge Bridgewater?
Well, I think that one of the things that I try to put people at ease initially is that I'm from East Texas. I grew up in Crockett, Texas. So it's not like I'm someone that doesn't know a small town and the way that people work together to accomplish goals. And you come to a large town and it seems like you just get lost. And I came here in 1975. I went to work in the district clerk's office while I went to law school at night. I graduated in '79 and went to work in the DA's office, and I was there for 3 years. Left the DA's office in '82, and I was in private practice for 23 years. Wow. I had my own practice, and it had a great deal of criminal defense work involved in it. And then in July of '07, the governor appointed me to the 178th Criminal District Court bench, and I served on that bench until January of '09. And in January of '09, Judge Lycos was elected as the district attorney, and I'd known her from trying cases, and she knew my work, and she asked me if I would come be one of her bureau chiefs. So I oversee a bureau that's called the Community Protection and Ethics and Professional Development Bureau. And it just allows me to be involved in the community like this, and also she gave me a charge of some of the things that she wanted to have accomplished. And one of them dealt with DWI, and I mentioned that privately with y'all earlier, and I'd love to talk about that sometime. But another thing was the mental health problem. And not just how many people are in jail, which is an issue, but just that there's no treatment at all for them. I mean, that's the concern.
Exactly. So we're glad to have you here with us. Can you tell us about some of the newly created, the mental health, child exploration, some of those sections that you are involved with in the office?
The bureau that I oversee includes child exploitation, which is our focus on internet access, trying to trap children that way. And it is amazing what that program has been able to do. Just as an aside, one of the first, or the first, program that a case was ever against a person using a Sony Xbox, because that's a game, kids play games, but they're contacting other people that they're playing against that aren't here. They're doing it through the internet. Well, predators have figured that out and come into the kid's room and that they're his friend, and they've given these false names. And we had one that had contacted a young child and was going to come here, make plans to fly to Houston to meet them, and we were able to intervene where they met our agents and the police officers as opposed to meeting the child. But Sony worked with us immediately, and but that's how aggressive we are with those things. And then the elderly abuse, when I first came to work for the judge, I would go out into community meetings that would be talking about the needs of the elderly, and the adult protective services would be there, and all the usual groups that work with the elderly. And they had, for so many years, heard that it's not a criminal matter, that the DA's office can't help you. And when I came out there to tell them that we're not only can help you, we've created a section that's going to help you. I mean, people were nearly jumping up on the tables. You know, they were so excited that we were going to be doing something. And we do have a section that most we've found, it's very sad commentary, but most we've found the abuse deals with finances.
Wow.
Where people get control of people's money.
That's right.
And they just don't care for them anymore. They don't. And they're so susceptible to that. So we spent a good deal of time trying to give some information to the community on how you can contact the DA's office, the charges that can be filed when someone does that. And then there's also the times when a family member or stranger will abuse an elderly person. And I'm talking about physically, will push them, hit them, knock them. And we see a lot of that happening too. So been able to get involved in those areas, and when you focus on something, you become more aware of how it's treated and what's going on, as opposed to just being one of the assault cases. It's like when domestic violence became something that people paid attention to. I was in, like I said, in the DA's office back in 79, 80, and that was still a time when they said, well, she really doesn't want to prosecute. She really doesn't want to do this.
Exactly.
Well, you start taking some numbers and paying attention, and she really does. If she had somewhere to go, and if she had some way to support her family, she would have. So our society has now reached the point to where it's treated with a great deal of interest, a great deal of respect by the police and by the courts. So that's kind of where we are wanting with mental health. Mental health is one of those things that back in the 80s, when I was in private practice, I represented a young boy who was charged with killing a girl in Baytown, a 10-year-old, and he was 16 years old. And it was at Halloween, and as a result, pretty much people quit having Halloween after that case. But it was one of those incidents that I had where I was able to see he was taken out of a mental institution by his mother and brought to Houston because she wanted to start a new life. The doctors made her sign saying that she knew she was taking him out against their wishes. And so it wasn't any surprise that with his mind confused as it was and not getting the help that he needed, that a nightmare occurred, and it did, and it was absolutely horrible. But it woke me up at an early point in my career to the concerns of the mentally ill. And as a result, many of the county court judges and the district court judges would refer their cases that they needed to appoint someone that was a mental health case to me because I knew those cases. I saw George Parnham on here a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, we did.
And
Yes, we did.
George and I were trying cases at the same time. He had one, a poor man had killed the pastor at the Methodist church back in the early 80s. And I was trying the one that I just mentioned, and there was another one. There were 3 cases going on at the same time where those issues as far as mental health. And too often people just think it's an excuse. And I know I want to share one more thing.
Oh, sure.
Jim Leitner, Jim Leitner is the first assistant for Judge Likas, and he and I were partners years ago, back in the mid-'80s. And we tried a case together, and when he was trying to come up with an example that he could impress upon the jury how you should think about somebody with mental health, he talked about a mother coming down the stairs, and her son has brought home a friend from school, and the friend knocks over something that's just a family heirloom and just breaks it. And she looks, and they were acting crazy, and they weren't paying attention, and she's upset. Okay, same scenario. Friends brought someone home, but the person's blind, and they knock it over. Well, mama treats them whole differently.
Totally.
It's a whole different thing. And that's how, with mental illness, you can't always see what a person doesn't have. But it needs to be paid attention to.
That's right.
Well, like you said, I just heard you say that when you are aware of something, you tend to get involved with it, and you pay attention a little bit more. You had cases, so now you pay a little bit. There's a lot more attention paid to it, the mental health part of it now. So when it's out there and you're involved with it, then you can see all the numbers and everything that's happening as far as mental health is concerned. Pastor, do you have any questions for the judge?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Bridgewater for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I've met him quite a few times, and one thing I discovered, he's a gentleman. He's a person that can get the message out that there are people inside of the system that are willing to help people. Just listening to you talk this morning, we spoke in the back before we got out here, how you're into helping people that cannot help themselves. One of the questions I know that we hear constantly, and they let many people out of the jail on a daily basis. with nowhere to go, roam around and eventually get trespass and maybe a case like that. Do they really, how long does it take to evaluate a person once they get into the jail as to whether or not they have some sort of a mental disorder? Is there a time frame?
Well, it's interesting that you would ask. One of the things that I've been working on the last 6 months is with the county attorney trying to first look at the process. Judge Likas, in this time when people are trying to cut money, as opposed to just cutting positions, she tried to see how can we heal the process, make things work more efficiently without automatically thinking you have to get rid of people. So we did kind of a very brief thumb look at when a person comes in to the jail. And there are, within the first very few hours, there's some screening that occurs where if the person is willing to admit that they have a problem, and most of them will, and if they don't, sometimes there are characteristics which indicate it. But they're identified within, I believe, most within 24 to 48 hours. The jail then put into a program where if they go to court and they're not able to help their attorney, and it's because they haven't been on their meds, those things that we know, it's just a cycle. Well, there was an order that you could have the judge sign, which was a 21-day order, and it would reset the case for 21 days, and it would give the person the opportunity for the forensic unit to evaluate, the psychiatrist to evaluate, get them on their meds, and then bring them back and see how things are going. Well, what we've done so far, our proposal is going to be that we cut that from 21 to 14.
Good.
Because we think you can figure it out in 2 weeks. And one of the goals that we have is that perhaps we can have a place other than the jail where that can be done. It may be one of the facilities that the Harris County Hospital District has. I mean, I'm just dreaming right now. But some place where they could have that treatment, we can get them stable, you can get them evaluated. Because what we're doing now, and have been doing since 2009 when Judge Likas came in, if we identify someone, if it's a misdemeanor or a felony, that of course makes a difference. But if we identify somebody that has a misdemeanor, has a mental health problem, there are times that we will agree to let them out on a bond once a caseworker has found a location for them. We had, for a period of time, we had a couple of caseworkers that were on loan from MHMRA that helped us find places. And there's some in the jail now. We were talking earlier about jail reentry, community reentry, and the caseworkers are vital to that.
Yes, yes.
But finding places where the people can live, getting them out of jail before 30 days, because if they stay in jail 30 days, they have any kind of government subsidy, it's gone, and they have to reapply. So if we can get them out before the 30 days and we can get them at a place where they can receive their treatment, then they're not taking the community money, they're using their own money that they have to be able to do that. So those are all plans and goals that started working on 2 years ago, and I had a meeting on it before I came here today. I was meeting with the county attorney about the guardianship program, because that's a very important part for us too. There's not a lot of people that qualify for that, but it's where people that can't care for themselves and they need someone to oversee them, that the county can appoint a person that would be responsible for that. Criminal cases can be dismissed, and then the mental health issues can be dealt with.
That's good.
Well, one of the things I'm glad you're addressing that, because I think sometimes the perception maybe is that when people are in and out of jail constantly like that, that sometimes the public look at it as being criminal. And I think we take people with mental problems sometimes and put the habitual in and out of jail problem on top of them when these people don't have the capacity to help themselves. And you talked about the guardianship. I've always wondered, why is it that when family members or some friend, when these people come on the street, maybe know that they're getting out and receive them like that. So certainly we really need some receiving area that these people can go to rather than be let back out on the street just to come back in. It's almost like a cycle, you know, in and out, in and out, with the same problem. Now, I'm also glad to hear you say that there are those that admit that they have a problem, they need help now. all the time that won't happen, especially in our
Right.
community, in our black community.
yeah.
So they,
Right.
it's kind of like taboo that said that I got somebody in my family that's got a mental
Right,
problem.
right.
But we all have some sort of mental problem.
right.
When I asked my members the other day at church, I said, let me see the hands of everybody that come in contact with somebody with mental disorder. And some hands didn't go up. I said, well, you might want to look in the mirror.